Hey guys, we're about to engage in the build here, the Spectra build. It's a black and white theme. We got it all going into the Corsair case here. It's an IQ 465X RGB. It comes with 3 RGB front fans. We got the guts, I guess, of the system is going to be a Core i9 9900K Intel processor. And the graphics card is a GeForce RTX 2070 Super. The motherboard is MSI. It's an MPG Z390 Gaming Edge AC. Really nice motherboard. Lots of heat sinks. Lots of overclocking capabilities. M.2 expansion ports, and we got 32 gigs of DDR4 3200 megahertz RAM going in. We got an all-in-one liquid cooler from Corsair, RGB. It's an H100 240 millimeter rad. We got an extra fan to go into the back for exhaust. We got an 850 power supply, all in white with white cables. I went with that because custom sleeving can be expensive, and this already comes with the cables. As far as let's see, I think that's it. I got an up here system. It's just a little rack that holds your graphics card up to keep it from sagging, and the peripherals are the M65 RGB Elite Corsair mouse. It's one that has the weights in the bottom. It's supposed to be pretty nice. And I got a Corsair K70 RGB special edition keyboard. It's got I think MX Cherry switches, so that should be nice. And then I got a set of cheap Bluetooth Logitech speakers because I'm not a sound guy, but we'll get into the unboxing segment, and I'll show you guys what to expect, what comes with everything, and then we'll get into the build after that. Alright guys, this is the brain of the computer here, the processor. We got an Intel i9 9900K 3.6 gigahertz out of the box, but it goes up to 5.0 gigahertz overclocked, which we can do because we got an all-in-one liquid cooler hooked up to it. If the need arises, I don't know if I'll do it right off the bat. It makes temps go up a little bit and all that, but we'll play with it when we need to. This box, on the other hand, looks like another situation that I don't know exactly how to open. All I see is this tape back here, and I'm assuming that if I cut that the rest will follow. Well, that was just a wrap. Alright, and then let's see. What is happening? Let's not break it. Let's not do that. This is taped again. Appears to be. What if I just kind of pried it? Try not to cut myself. Nope. Here's another piece of tape. It's like you have to prove if you're worthy for this processor. But figuring out how to open the box. Okay, 2 pieces of tape. Is there any more? Not that I see. Alright. Show me something here. What's going on? Tell me I don't have to Google how to open the i9 9900K box. That's a bit ridiculous. Let's see. This looks like it's a separate panel where the tape is. Aha. I've cracked it. Ooh, what a horrible sound. It just opens in 2 pieces. Okay, not as not as dramatic as I thought it would be. It looked like it would like fold out into like a Rubik's Cube or something. Alright, so here is the business end. That was a little weird. I thought that, there we go. Alright, so there's the little box that comes inside. And then the processor itself. It's smaller than I had pictured. But anyways, I'm not going to get it out and handle it right now. So you can see the information on the top of the card there. You know what card you got. So if you put this in storage and mix it with other cards, you're going to know what you got. The thermal paste will be directly applied to the top of this for most people, but I've got an all-in-one cooler that comes with it pre-applied, so I'll just put that on there. Some people still prefer to use their own thermal paste. Some thermal pastes are better than others, but I'm just going to use what Corsair put on their cooler. So on to the next part. Alright guys, so we got the MSI MPG Z390 Gaming Edge AC. That's a mouthful, but it's got the RGB Mystic Light as kind of a backlight situation. Like I said, I'm going to unbox each of these items, show you pretty much what it looks like coming out of the box, what it comes with, and then we can move on to the build after all the parts are unboxed. If you don't want to watch this part, you can just scrub the video further until you see me putting crap together. Alright, so let's open this up. Alright. So most of the components you buy will be in these gray, like anti-static bags. You want to keep them in there until you're ready to get them out and start putting stuff together. So it comes with the motherboard, and yeah, there's another compartment under that. There's our case badge. Some people like to stick every brand they got onto their case. This is an SLI I guess bridge, for lack of better terminology. It's an MSI branded SLI bridge. It's to hook two graphics cards together. You basically just hook it into the graphics cards and it bridges them together like it's one graphics card. That SLI and Crossfire with AMD is kind of dead nowadays, though. With the newer graphics cards, you really don't get much benefit doing that anymore. Now with some of the older cards it was worth it, but not really anymore from what my research, from what I've researched and looked around about. So I didn't put two in this system. I just went with the one RTX 2070 Super. So comes with that. Put that in the parts bin. Might use it at some point. Alright, you got your discs that has the software on it. These are handy for somebody who's got like a disk drive and for some reason don't want to connect it to the internet and get it off of the websites. We got some pamphlets here, advertisements, thank you card, and these, let's see, what are these? They are cable labels. That's kind of nice, never seen that before. Probably haven't seen a lot of this before. I don't do this a whole lot. I've built maybe 7 or 8 systems. This is the installation guide. And this, very important not to overlook, is the IO shield. And it goes into the back of your case. That's where you're going to be hooking in all the goodies into the back of your system. That just kind of pops into the system. You'll see that when I start building. This is the user's guide. It's good to come back to this if you're wondering where to hook something into. A lot of people get confused with the RAM order. We won't be having that issue because we have 4 sticks and that occupies all of the slots. Comes with our SATA cables. We got one with a 90. Those are really handy for tight spaces. And then it's got a straight on the other side, and then this one has 2 straights. This is our antenna for Wi-Fi on the board. It's built in. And this, what is this even? This is a 4-pin extension. I'll have to look into what they want you to use that for. But that's all that comes in the box except for these 2 screws that you do not want to lose. They are the M.2 expansion port screws. When you plug an M.2 into a motherboard, you have to screw down one side with these screws. And they're really hard to find replacements for if you lose them, so keep them somewhere where you won't lose them. And they're best to just keep in the package, so you know they're harder to lose until you need them. Now I'll close this box back up and use it as a platform to show the motherboard itself off. And there we have it. And we've got some kind of RGB looking-ish glare going on here, like almost like a chrome. Let me go ahead and take those off because I know for a fact that I would forget later. Don't want anything weird going on with left-on plastic. So let's see here, we got M.2 slot here, and then you would plug it in and they kind of are lifted, so you push them down, and then there's where the little screw would go into. And this board has 2. It's a pretty high-end board. These are heat sinks to dissipate heat. Of course, our socket and the 4 RAM slots here. This is how the board gets power, and then up here is a 6+4 pin connector. Graphics card is going to go in the uppermost slot first. If you have 2, it goes in the second. This is a nice feature right here. It's metal reinforced. Always good to see that. And let's see. We've got lots of USB situations going on here. Yeah, I'm liking the color theme pretty well. I couldn't clearly see it online. I just saw that it had lots of black, and I wanted kind of a black wash in the back. So, and it had really good reviews. MSI is known for really high quality products, so I went with it. Of course, when you're building a PC, the first thing you want to check and make sure is that your processor is going to match up with your motherboard. That's like a big mistake. People just think, you know, well, they can get just anything. You got to make sure that the socket fits. So this is an LGA 1151, I believe, and so I got the same processor to fit into it. So really, when you start building a computer, the first part you want to pay attention to, that you want to choose to build the system around, I would say would be the processor, because it's, you know, the most important part, I would say, in my opinion, that goes into your computer. It governs a lot of things, and it's difficult, more difficult to switch out just, you know, later on if you wanted to. And then secondly would be like what motherboard you would choose, and then the graphics card. You just got to check all your compatibility. And there's a website called PC Parts Picker that I use for that, and it lets you know beforehand what's compatible and what's not. Like, you choose your parts, and then it gives you a list of the other parts to choose that are compatible with that part. So right now, we are going to go on to the next unboxing here. Probably the graphics card. And some of these things, it's not really worth an unbox because it's just like a fan or a radiator. But so I'll just unbox the core components, and then we'll install some of them on the motherboard outside of the case to make it easier, and then we'll install the motherboard with some of the components on it into the case, and then install the rest of the parts. So hang tight. Alright guys, so next we have the MSI GeForce RTX 2070 Super, and it's the Ventus model because it's, you know, got two fans, the whole vent thing going on. So we gotta take the plastic off here. Let me see where this box opens first. Okay. This box came a little bit crunched on the upper side here, being delivered, so I hope everything is alright, or I'll be sending some things back. Alright. Let's see, we got foam, and then we got this envelope with nothing in it except for this. This is the Quick Start User's Guide. We got another thank you card from MSI, and we got the card stuck into some foam here. Gotta kind of pry it up. This is way bigger than I had it pegged for. I'll go ahead and say that. Being a 2-fan card, I thought it would be kind of on the smaller side, but it should fit in the case. Let's see. So here's the back plate. I love that they've started doing this. This is way better than just looking at the kind of exposed backboard on these graphics cards. Just a lot better to look at, and it's a nice silver and black to go with the white and black theme. Here's what you'll be seeing looking into the side of the case. It doesn't light up on this model, it's just silver paint. The heat piping looks really solid. Looks like we have 4 heat pipes to dissipate the heat with. We got 2 fans here, and then we got all the ports on this side with these plastic inserts to protect them until we're ready to use them. And let's see what kind of power. This takes 4 plus 6 pin power. So really slick looking card. It's going to look great in the system. I like this metallic piece back here, but you won't be able to see that because this whole side here will be under. So basically what's on top and what's in the front is what you're going to be seeing the whole time. So on to the next part. Alright guys, so we got the power supply. This is, you know, just what it sounds like. It's how your computer gets power from the socket in your wall. We went with the RM850X. It's supposedly a really good 80+ gold certified power supply, and it's in white, so it comes with the white cords. Here's all the papers, foam inserts, zip ties, which come in handy with cable management big time, case badge, some screws for installing it. You got your power cable. Here is this is the primary reason I purchased this, is the white cables. They're in this nice mesh material. It looks like it is custom, like a custom sleeve job. You know, it's got the little shrink white rubber pieces here and everything. Looks really clean. And then these that are not wrapped, the SATA and data cables, PCIe, everything you need. It's a fully modular power supply, which is good because we don't have to use all of the wires. We can just use the ones we need. So here is where they hook in, and they lead from here to your parts. In this case, I'll be facing it down so it sucks in fresh air from the bottom. It's got a nice dust filter in the case. And then here's the back that you have your power switch and where the cord, the power cord gets plugged into. So on to the next part. Alright guys, so we got two of these 16 gigabyte kits, so we'll have 32 total of these Vengeance RGB Pro. They connect in with the iCUE software, so they'll match all the iCUE fans in the case. It's DDR4 16 gigabyte kits, and the speed is 3200 megahertz. And so when you unbox RAM, they usually come in like a plastic sleeve, like a clamshell case. And so it's got the heat sink on there to dissipate the heat, and the light bars on the top. And like the box showed, you can have them rainbow, you can choose what color you want it, like solid color. But let's try to pop them out of here. Oh, that's the bottom. Show one. So these are like an aluminum or a metal. RAM is keyed, so it has this slot right here, and you can't install it the wrong way. It only fits into the motherboard one way. Now where people install RAM incorrectly is when they put it into the wrong slots, because if they're doing like dual channel RAM, they'll put them in the slots that are not supposed to be occupied first. You have to occupy the slots in order. But like I said, with this build, we don't have to deal with that because it occupies all 4 slots, so it wouldn't matter. So it looks like pretty solid RAM to me. The boxes weren't damaged on this one, so hopefully we won't have any dead on arrivals. But yeah, on to the next part. Alright, so here, these hard drives usually ship in like a brown unmarked box from Seagate here. I've used these for years on almost every one of my builds, and they always work really well. Really good way to get cheap storage with you know, a lot of storage. So this is 4 terabyte, plenty enough for what I need, but I can also add pretty much, I don't know, 3 to 4 more hard drives into this machine because of the tray slots and the extra space that I'll have and all that. But this is all I'll need, I'm sure. and plus the motherboard has the M.2 slots for extra storage as well. But this is pretty straightforward. This is what it looks like out of the box. You don't really want to bash it around or be rough with it. And when you're handling computer parts, always be sure to like touch your case to get the static you know, decharged off from yourself, so you don't accidentally static shock any PC parts, because that can ruin them. But yeah, there's the hard drive, so on to the next part. Alright guys, this is the SSD, 120 gigabytes. This is for, I bought this just to put Windows on. It's not a very fast drive, but it was really cheap. I think this was only like $19.99. So I went ahead and got it just because it was such a good price for an SSD. I think the speed on this is, yeah, it's the read speed is 520 megabyte per second, and the write speed is 410 megabyte per second. So yeah, not the fastest in the world, but it's, you know, storage nonetheless. And there it is, about the size of like half of a Hershey bar or something. This is a 2.5 inch drive. Same drive that you could fit inside, say, a PlayStation 4, or you know, a bunch of other devices support this. Laptops and whatnot support 2.5 inch drives. So this will go into the back of the computer case where the cables are. For my instance, it's got two little brackets to fit two of these type of drives in there. But I'm only using this one, and with the hard drive, that's my storage situation for this build right now. So I guess we'll do the all-in-one cooler next. Alright, so we got the all-in-one liquid cooler here, and basically all these are is a radiator that these two fans blow air through, and it cools down the liquid inside, and that liquid is transferred through these tubes into this heat sink that connects onto your processor, and the cool liquid transfers the cool temperature down through the heatsink onto your power, or onto your processor, and it in turn keeps your processor much cooler than air can. So these all-in-one systems are a really good way to have a liquid cooled CPU without going full-pledged, you know, liquid cooling in your entire system with a pump and all the fittings and the tubing and all that. You can just buy this and you're set for the processor. Now, if you want to liquid cool your graphics card and multiple things in your system, by all means, you know, try out liquid cooling. I've never done it, but it is a bit more pricey, and for most builds you can get away with you know, an all-in-one with you know, air fans for the rest of your parts. So this is the white model. It's the H100i RGB Platinum SE, also IQ compatible. So we got some papers here. We got the two fans, and this ring right here is what lights up, and you've got a see-through plastic for the fan itself, so it's going to let that color pop, and white reflects the color really well. So two of those. Also, it's a little confusing for those that have never messed with them. You've got your RGB hub, and or it goes to the RGB hub, and then you've got the power for the fan to turn. So you know, if you want both the lights and the fan both to work, they both have to be plugged in. And then we have the radiator right here. You can see the fins that the air flows through. The Corsair logo on the sides. It's a gloss white. We'll just put this back in here for now, and I'll show the heatsink part. So this is the heatsink part. I don't want to overflex these tubes here. Basically it looks like that. It's got the Corsair logo on the front. All these are power for the pump, the lights, multiple things going on here. Be sure to look at the manual to see where to plug everything. I'm not quite sure about this particular all-in-one. And as you can see, the thermal paste is pre-applied to the copper block here, and it's all ready to go. You just attach this onto it. You'll see all that later on. You attach this to your motherboard. Certain motherboards you have to use these brackets that come with it. These are all brackets and screws in this pocket for any kind of motherboard that this is compatible with. So let's get this all back down in there for now so it stays safe, and we'll unbox the next part. Alright, so here we have an extra fan. You guys have seen what those look like, but I'll just show you what it looks like when you unbox one fan by itself. Try to get in here. So these are the LL120 RGB, and they're the IQ compatible fans. Let's see, the cord is underneath this shroud here. Gotta be careful not to pull on those cords too hard. Alright, so same deal we had with the all-in-one liquid cooler. See-through fan plastic, and then white frame with the RGB and the power for the fan. And then also it comes with screws here, 4 of them, to screw into your case and install the fan. And then we've got last part here, except for the case. I'm going to kind of go through the case with you on a different angle. This is the up here system. For years there wasn't really any good solution for graphics card sag, and I've built 2 or 3 systems that I can remember on the top of my head, especially with the triple fanned cards, the really long boys. They like to sag when you hook them into the motherboard on the end that's not close to the back. And this is to basically just stand up in your case and hold one side of your graphics card. It's got like a little clamp system going on, and I chose silver to accent. The bottom of my monitor has silver on it, and also the graphics card has silver accents. So let's see here. It looks like that these are all really well machined parts. There's the base that says up here, and let's see, that is the top part. This is the, so you screw this together, I'm assuming, for the mast, I guess is what you would call that, or the frame. And then these look like your clips. You try to get that popped out there. Alright, and that's all it consists of. and these have rubber pads on them. You slide them, loosen the nut, and slide it down. Get this tight underneath of your graphics card, however high you want it to be held, until it's straight. Don't put too much stress on it to where it's bending the motherboard input there, but you just tighten it, thumb tighten, and then you bring the other one down with the rubber side down and kind of lightly pinch your graphics card and hold it in the position that you want it to be in. And this would work with pretty much any graphics card because of the adjustability. And it's a really simple, cool little system that kind of adds a little extra flair and kind of a mechanical look to the inside of your case while holding up your graphics card. So that's it for the parts. Now I'm going to show you the case and its features and stuff, and then we'll get to the build. Alright guys, so the last part to the build is the case, and it's a mid-tower ATX case. I think you can do mini ATX in this too. I don't know, micro possibly. I forget what and all you can do in it exactly, but I've just got an ATX. It's the IQ465X RGB, and it comes with these 3 front fans that are intaking air, and Corsair kind of caught on to the glass panel thing going on right now, except they did it in a smart way. Cases that have glass panels or a solid panel in the front, like brushed aluminum is another popular one, or just a straight clean looking front with no vent holes, no ventilation, you're not going to get enough air into your system unless you have it coming from another source, like from the top or from the bottom in some cases. It's very important that you have airflow. You need air coming in and you need air coming out of the back, and sometimes the back and the top. And there's like an 1.5 inch gap right here, 1.25 inches, to allow those fans to suck air in. This is not as good as if there was no glass here, but the tests that have been shown in this case, it only has a difference of a few degrees on the parts, with or without this glass on the front. And also there's a dust filter, so any hindrance on direct front and center airflow on the fans, including filters, glass panels, anything in the way, if there's wires hanging inside blocking the air, it's going to hinder your system and cause the parts to get a little warmer. Usually it's not a big problem unless you're overclocking and things are getting really hot and they're just not getting enough airflow. Just always be sure to have air coming in and air coming out. More air coming in if possible than going out. So yeah, this case has tempered glass. It's not plexi, it's the actual stuff. It's tempered in the front, tempered on the side. It's smoked. Right now it's got plastic on it, so you're going to see little weird wrinkles and smudges. I'm going to wait till the build is complete to remove those. Thumb screws. Am I centered? Okay, thumb screws are here on all 4 corners. You just simply loosen them all the way. Try not to lose your screws. Be sure to hold your glass because you do not want this thing just flopping down on the table. You'll regret that. And then we'll see how it releases here. It just pulls straight out. and comes off. So let me set this aside. Alright, so now you can get a clear look of the inside. We've got our front panel connections. This shroud on the bottom hides the power supply, and it hides the hard drive cage. You can see that this case is a black and white color pattern with the rubber grommet cable pass-throughs, and there's some cutaways in the metal up here as well for cable passages. These brackets are for the graphics card. You undo the screws here for as many as you need. Now it does have 2 ports here on the back. If you want to vertically mount your graphics card with an extension to the motherboard. These pop out permanently. They're the kind of Walmart computer pop out and leave it out design instead of the screw in. This bracket here you have to take off and then you have to pop those out. I for one am not a fan of the vertical graphics card look because it covers up a lot of what you have in your system. So I won't be using this, so all that's going to stay. Now let me see here. This one does, I don't think it does. I don't think it has a power supply unit bracket. A lot of them do. You put the bracket onto your power supply and then slide it in from the rear. This looks like the old-fashioned, you know, what I'm used to seeing, where you put the power supply in the side, line it up in here, and then put your screws in. We're going to be putting our power supply with the fan facing down because it's got a nice dust filter down here to pull air in from the bottom. Very important, you don't want a bunch of dust getting all crammed into your power supply. Here's where our one of our fans is going to be exhausting. The top has this magnetic dust filter that lays right across the top here. You can take that off or leave it on, it's up to the user. It's not, my system is not going to be pulling air, so it's kind of useless to have this on for me. Other than aesthetics, it makes it look cleaner. So I'll have to see just how much airflow is able to pass through this mesh. But this is where my radiator is going, up in the top, right here, around this area. And you do get the leeway here to be able to scoot it back and forth. So I'm not sure exactly where I'll have to place it. But on the front, you've got 2 USB, you've got your power, you've got your headphone, microphone, and you've got the reset button. Pretty straightforward. Let me see. And then the last thing to show, well, show you a front-on view of the front, what I was talking about there. And then that also can come off, and you can get to your dust filter and clean all that out. Now this side has 2 screws on the back that stay in the tray. It slides out and then pops out. And here you can see the RGB hub. It's the Corsair, what is it called? IQ software, yeah. That's where all of your RGB fans that you want to be connected in together so they all match, you're going to be wanting to hook them all into this hub here. You'll see right here is the slots for our SSDs. We've got one, I'll be putting it right here. I may get another in the future. It's always an option. And then we have 2 slots for hard drives down here, and this box that comes with some screws and goodies for the case for us to use. So you can already see that there's a little bit of a spaghetti mess with the cables, just with these fans and the front end connectors. So I think cable management is going to be a little tricky on this case. It is a kind of a small form factor for a mid-tower, especially with that shroud in here. It seems like it kind of makes it seem smaller on the inside, but we'll see how the build goes shortly. Let's see, did I forget to mention anything? Of course, this is your access to the back of the motherboard for attaching brackets and whatnot for the heat sinks. But yeah guys, so we'll start the build and see what we can get into. Alright guys, so when I build computers, there's a few parts that I put onto the motherboard before I install the motherboard into the case, and that's RAM and the CPU, and also possibly I have to look to see exactly what brackets and whatnot that I need, the all-in-one liquid cooler. But for a lot of people, the CPU is the scariest part because it's usually the most expensive part on your build. But really, this metal tension arm, you just push it down and kind of pull it over, and it relieves the tension. And then you want to pull that back. But first I'm going to go ahead and get our processor ready, and then I'll tell you the next steps here. So in this corner there is a little golden arrow, and you'll see that arrow on the motherboard as well, right in the corner there. And you want to match those corners up when you're installing it. You don't want to have it twisted and all that. And there's also little cutouts on the little board for the processor that can only fit one way. Now, Intel has little metal contact points, like little plates. They're like little oval plates. AMD still uses pins on their processors. So when you release this tension arm here, you pull it back all the way until that flips up, and then you can flip it the rest of the way with your finger. Now you want to get the the processor out of the plastic tray. Be very careful not to touch the top and not to touch the bottom. The oils from your finger can interfere and do all kinds of funky junk with thermal paste and all of that. So you want to pick it up from the sides, pop it out. So there it is. And you want to line your arrow up with the arrow that was in the corner. And you don't want to push down, you want to just kind of drop it, give it a little jiggle to make sure that it got in there right. Okay, and then you don't want to try to take this plastic part off. You want to just close it, bring down the tension arm. This is the part that a lot of people are scared about because it feels like you're going to break something almost. But you push down and lock your tension arm back into the little hole for it there, and you notice that this plastic piece relieved itself off of the top, and the processor is installed. Now we'll move on to the RAM. and I'll show you guys that. I'm hoping that all this is getting captured okay. I've never really recorded in this manner before, like the overhead shot here. I'm trying to do everything upside down. Hope it's not too bad. Alright, now for RAM, it's pretty straightforward. It's not near as, scary per se as installing the processor, but you still want to do it right. So these little triggers here, or what would you call those, levers, make sure all of them are pushed back. This slot right here lines up with this slot on the motherboard. So you want to make sure that you're putting it in correctly. So line it up with the slots on the side, make sure you're lined up with the slot in the middle, and apply even pressure downward. And both sides will click into place. Both sides will click into place. Once they click in and grab the sides of the RAM, you're good to go. It's installed. You just continue that until all your RAM slots, or the RAM slots that you're filling, are completed, and then you can go on to the next step. So we'll do it for the other three here. The plastic does not want to let go of that. Okay. So it's a little hard to see when you're installing them so close together. Let me see here. Alright, so, and then you push evenly. There's two. Let me hunt my other ones down. There's three. And there's four. So that is 32 gigs of RAM installed, and the processor is installed. So now we go on to the next step. Alright guys, next step is I'm going to put my fans onto my radiator. I've already chosen which way I want the air to blow. I want it to be intaking. The only exhaust to this system is going to be this one fan in the back. Or the one fan in the back. You guys probably can't see off the screen there. But you might want to use a little bit of a better grip screwdriver for this part. This calls for these long screws that pass through the fan body and into the radiator screw holes. Be careful not to use any of your own screws that you just find or something. You can damage the radiator, poke holes in it. I think that the paint on this version, this white glossy paint, is making it more difficult to screw these in. I had to go back to the book a couple times to make sure these were the right size, so I wasn't damaging anything, and they are. So let me screw one in. So you just want to get it tight enough to hold it. You don't want to bust the plastic or anything. And you just go around all four corners and do the same thing. Okay, and then you just repeat the process on these, and then you put your other fan on, in the same orientation, and put all the screws in that one, and then on to the next step. Alright guys, so the next step is we're going to drop the motherboard down in here, and you'll notice these little standoffs is what they're called. They're pre-installed on this case for ATX, and they're marked with a little A that shows what they're for, ATX, and then M for micro ATX or mini ATX. I'm not really sure, but just be sure that your standoffs are in the right spot for your motherboard. And your case will come with the standoff screws here. They've got a little flat, wide head, and they're pretty short. It's always a good idea to take one before you start to make sure that they thread into the standoff correctly, because you don't want to use the wrong screws and cross thread them. So that really slickly goes down in there. So we'll use those. Let me find a little place to put them. Okay. So now we want to grab our motherboard. Well, first, it slipped my mind, as it usually does. The I/O shield needs to go in the back at this rectangular cutout. These circles need to go towards the bottom. Okay, so it usually just snaps into place with a little pressure. And it's in. Okay, now we're going to take our motherboard, make sure it is oriented correctly, and we want to match it with the standoffs. While we put the rear through the I/O shield here. Make sure that our standoffs are on there, and it'll pop into place once you got it in the right spot. Now you can go through and put all of your standoff screws in. So put one in the middle here. You just want it finger tight, because there's a lot of them and you don't need something cracking or damaging your motherboard with too much force. You may not be able to see very well because of my arm or the case. I've tried to get a good angle on it here. Let's see. It is a pretty tight fit for this case, if you haven't noticed the clearance for a full ATX board. But it should look pretty good when it's all sandwiched in there at the end of the build. You don't want to miss any of these. You want it fully supported, so nothing is getting pulled down or getting excessive wear or anything like that on it. Now, these top ones can be a booger to get to sometimes. because of this upper lip on cases. And then this one is wedged behind this heatsink. And this one is between the heatsink and the power inlet there. And the motherboard's installed, so now we can start putting our other parts in it and go on to the next step. Okay, next step, I'm going to go ahead and put in the graphics card. Because of the RAM height, we ran into some clearance issues with the radiator being in the top. So there's going to be a switch up. I'm going to have to put these fans, at least a couple of them, up here, and the radiator in the front where there's much more clearance. So right now I'm trying to figure out where the pump tubes are going to be routed. So I have to install the graphics card to see where the smartest option would be. So I've already lined it up, and it looks like the second and third slots here I have to remove. So you want to keep these screws because you'll need them to put back in when your radiator or when your graphics card is installed. Those just slide out like so. And then we take our graphics card and make sure that we slip that silicone sleeve off of the chip there. And then we make sure that this is pulled back into the first PCIe slot. Line it up and then push down. Making sure all wires are out of the way. And once it clicks into place like so, you get your screws that you just took out. And put them back in the holes. And the graphics card is installed. Alright guys, so what we had to end up doing was repositioning the radiator to the front. It's right here, and then I put a third fan up there for all this to be intake into the case, cold air intake. So the heat sink block is going to go like this onto the top of the processor. All these wires are going to be managed, but it avoids the RAM and goes over the top just like that. The issue was the RAM, it was too tall, and this heatsink was too far back. These heat sinks do take up quite a bit more space than some that I've seen in the past, and they stick out more. So this big thick radiator plus the fans, there's no way it would have fit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the RGB fans that were in the front and put them in the top up here, because they being, you know, half as thick will fit. And I'll put two up there and then one going out the back. So I'll have all this cold air coming in, cold air coming in, hot air going out the back. So that's the next plan, is for me to install these fans in the top. And let's see, right here is a good close-up of the arrows that are on these Corsair fans that show you which direction the wind is blowing. But as a kind of a rule of thumb for most fans, whatever side this X is on, you notice it's only on one side, is the side that the wind blows out of. So let me get these fans installed in the top and then we'll go on to the next step. Alright guys, the next step is you put your back plate on, and this is called a standoff back plate. This is for your all-in-one cooler's heatsink to screw into. So these just popped through those 4 little holes inside of this square, and you can access it through this panel in the back of your case. Alright guys, so in order to install this onto this, you need these standoff screws here, and the last step was our back plate, and that allows these to get screwed in to the 4 corners, and that'll be our standoffs for these to come in and screw in to that, which clamps this into place. So the next step is to screw all 4 standoff screws in all 4 corners, just like this. If they're a little hard to get to, might have to switch hands. There we go. Once all 4 of them are in there and they're snug, then you can take the plastic off of this if you haven't already. And then pop your plastic off of the bottom here. You don't want to touch or mess with that paste. And you want to route your cables, make sure that you're not getting them under anything, and make sure that this is going to fit for you. And you want to just slide them over the standoffs and get your thumb screws. Put them on each corner. You don't want to tighten them too tight to begin with, just kind of do each corner at a time. Like that. And do the other 2 corners. And then this last one will be a little hard to get to because of those wires. Just have to get it started on there and then come in with the trusty screwdriver And don't torque it too hard, just kind of firm, and make sure that you get about the same tightness all the way around. Once you get the same resistance all the way around, go around once more, make sure that you're 100% on it, and it's installed. And now all you got to do is plug in your power to all of this. And I'm going to now, I guess, install the power supply, and we can start getting everything plugged in. Okay guys, next we're gonna pull one of these trays out and install our solid state drive. All you got to do is line up the holes, the little brass holes with the plastic holes on the tray, and your case should come with the screws to do this with. And that's installed into the little bracket there, and now it just goes right back into the track. Of course, all these wires will be taken care of, so you just put it right back in here, find the track that it used to be on, and slide it in until it pops. And then we will install this hard drive into the one below it. And these are pretty easy because the holes are already on them. You just line the holes up with these tabs and pop them into place. You kind of have to flex the brace, and then there you go. And it conveniently slides into its own little shelf. And there's the storage for the system. We just have to hook the SATA and data cables to it when we're hooking up all the power. Alright guys, so we're gonna put the power supply in now. I went ahead and put all of the cables that I'm gonna need that came with it in this bag. The PCIe, the CPU power, the 24-pin connector, all of those, the SATA, the peripheral. If I need more, I'll put them in after I install it. Alright, so with this one it looks like that you just kind of slide it in. You want to make sure your cables are not going to snap off inside of it or anything. You want to bend them however that's going to fit. It's really cramped down in here. And then once it's in, it's not so cramped. You're gonna spin your case around, and then you're gonna want to install the power supply into those holes. These screw holes here. One up here, one down here, and one right there. A lot of the times there's only 3 that show up, and this one up here won't, or it'll be one over here. So we actually got 4 points to screw it in. So you take your screw and you screw it in. And you do that on all 4 corners. Alright guys, so that next part there is really hard to record. I don't really have the right setup to record all that, and my arms were in the way most of the time. But after you hook in the PSU, the power supply, if you have a modular power supply, all you have to plug in is the wires you need. So you need to look ahead and say, I need this 8-pin connector for the CPU, I need this 8 plus 6-pin connector for the GPU, I need this 24-pin connector for the motherboard, and you know, your SATA, that's your hard drives, and figure all that out first, plug in what you need, and then cable manage the best you can in empty pockets under here and behind the back side of the PC that I showed you guys when I was showing you the case. So this is the final product after I cable managed the best I could. There is a lot of fan action, a lot of RGB headers and craziness going on with this build, so it's not the neatest, but I'm happy with it for now. All that's left to do is to put the front panel back on, dust filters back on, and put the glass on the side, and then boot it up for a test boot to see if BIOS recognizes all of the parts, and then we can install Windows on it. I'm not going to put any software type stuff in this video, but I'm going to put Windows on it when it comes in. I've got it ordered. But anyways guys, I'll put a quick video clip at the end of this of the finished product with it powered on, and get back to you. Alright guys, so the build is complete and put back together. You can see the case there. It's all the panels are back on, and all the fans are running. We got BIOS up here. Everything is showing up. You check and see at the top there. It shows the i9 9900K. It shows 32 gigs of memory. And if you click on storage, you can see that it recognizes our solid state drive and our hard drive. And from here you can look at your fans. The CPU temperature is nice and chilly.